put the code up, and we'll just, for a second, maybe we'll throw up another 1 minute splash. Cool. Let's close this down. Let's get the show on the road. Hey, Rob.
Hello.
This is so my name's Roger Conrad, and I'm gonna pretend to be a host today, because somebody has to. And today we have Rob Cameron on the show. Rob Cameron is just the headline fact, and I'll let Rob introduce himself. Rob is one of the core team members of Redwood, which is the subject of today's session. And Rob, while I'm still getting the repo set up, feel free to introduce yourself, please.
Rob, you might be Anakin. GitHub, Twitter. What about me? A core team of RedwoodJS. Started. Let's see, what is this? March. We launched Redwood, 0.1 in March of last year, but we started working on it, 10 months before. So I've been on almost very beginning. A couple of the other core members, Tom Preston Warner and Peter Pistorius, they work together at a company that Tom runs called Chatterbug. Language learning site. And as they were building it, they started out as a Rails app, and then they brought in some React, and there's some patterns that sort of developed as they were building the app. And Tom thought it would be interesting that as an actual framework, because this is kind of like the Wild Wild West. Like if you look at every React app, the structure is different, everything's in different places, everything's named different, like it's all over the place. So he kind of wanted to unify that into one system. And they took some of the things they learned from Chatterbug and started building Redwood from that. So Peter, who was the lead developer at Chatterbug, started one up with Tom. And Peter has left Chatterbug. Chatterbug was working at Wood. He was for a while. He was doing that. Now he's got like a startup he's working on. And Tom, Chatterbug is his day job, but he's also working on Wood nights and weekends. And then he brought me on. I've known Tom for almost years now. We've been friends for a long time. Brought me on, and the other founding core members is David. He's also for a long time. Tom got him on. He works in the community, does like a CI, CD stuff, releases, all kinds of stuff. So it started out with the four of us, and once more people start writing code, adding stuff to it, we've got like a whole core group. I think there's 14 total in the core. I would call them the core development core group. And it's great. Wow.
And that started just from, what was it, like the three of you were saying, right? Is it three, four people basically?
Like I said, it would have been two. It would have been Peter, and then they brought me on, it was three, and then we brought Dave in for four. So we were four of us until I forget what version, and then once we got past a certain point, more and more people were contributing on a regular basis, then we started welcoming people into the core with us.
Yeah, but there's some early guys too that do some pretty amazing stuff with the product for quite a few releases now too, right? So absolutely, they contribute a lot, and it's a pretty amazing community.
Yeah, several startups now that are built on Redwood, which is amazing to see. There's actually people like hired as Redwood developers, which is pretty cool. So it's like becoming like an actual thing in the world. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's what drew me in. There's just so many people that are so helpful and engaging, and the Discord chat. Actually, I thought I should have thought about throwing up an invite to the Discord chat. We can add
Oh
it
yeah.
later. Yeah,
Include,
yeah.
is there
So,
show notes, links in the show notes?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I put a bunch of links in the YouTube one, but I never thought about the Discord invite.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll leave it to somebody like the David. Probably the David is watching this especially at the beginning, just be like, oh, let's see what those guys are doing there.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll be have a fast link. But well, thank you so much. I'll just say it up front because that way I don't trip over my own lip at the end and forget to thank you so much for taking the time today to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So my job today is to be, in a way, as unprepared as possible so that I do my best to represent the freshest developer to maybe open source contribution or open source sort of like, I see a project. How does it work? How do I get, how do I build with that tool? And one of these days we're actually going to do hopefully another one, and it'll be about actually contributing to the open source. But today is just about, hey, I heard about this RedwoodJS. How do I get started? And when we run into some problems, then we're gonna have the cool, smooth hand of Rob here to smooth this out. No pressure at all on Rob. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
And if you want to tweet us any questions or have anything on Twitch, YouTube, or of course Twitter, just send me a message on there, and you should pop up on our chat. Let's see here. I think I even have a little tool that can show everybody how I just discovered this one. There it is. We can scooch over, and if chats come in, we can even pop you up on there. So sweet. All right. So Rob, I'm thinking about where to start. Should I just open up, show the browser just to show what we have at this moment? What's our sort of starting point?
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll say too, like if you're starting from scratch, if you go to js.com, we've got a tutorial on there that kind of starts you from no knowledge Redwood. And once you get through one, then that would lead to what we're going to do today, right? Which is part 2 of the tutorial. We start you off with a repo that gets you through all of part 1. So kind of a snapshot of where you would be at the part 1, and check out repo, and I'll start here at the beginning of part 2 too. So part 1, we actually build a blog from scratch. Having posts and having a backend ads, you can create blog posts. And we even deploy it to Netlify. We add some authentication so you can log in, log out. Now part 2, where I don't know how much do we want to give it any sneak preview, or we want to just start building it and see what's.
Let's build it. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see where we get to. I'm excited.
So in part 2, we're going to build a comment engine for our blog. People can actually leave comment. And you can follow along if you go to redwoodjs.com/tutorial2, like the number 2, to get you to be. And it's broken.
Those links will be in the YouTube description, by the way, for anybody who wants. The links to both Redwood Part 1 and Part 2 are in the description, just to make it easier for everybody. Sorry, Rob.
And see here as we go. So we start out with a blog, and all you can do is post, and we have one form you can like just send messages, contact form that we have. So that's like our building a form in part 1 to show how it comes in and out. This goes into a database, and so that's where we start at the beginning of part 2. So part 2, and this has always been sort of the core theory of Redwood, is using Storybook. So if people aren't familiar, it's kind of a standalone app that you can develop your components in, view them in isolation, get them working the way you want, and then you plug them into your real site. Yeah, that form of it, because it's not actually deployed Netlify. So Storybook here to create the engine. So you basically create it instead of putting it into your real app from scratch and like reloading, making a change, reloading, and you do all this in Storybook itself, and it's like self-contained world you can grab, and even without having data connected to it. So you can build a comment engine without even being connected to a database. And then when you're ready and things the way you want, then you plug it into sort of your real app.
Yeah, because you can mock the data really, really easy in Storybook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's half of it. So half of tutorial 2 is doing Storybook, and the second half is tests, so writing tests for all our components, our cells, and our service. Test, in some circles, not been most important thing. So we're trying to bring that to the JavaScript ecosystem. Like I'm an old Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and test like the most important thing. I always write a test. So we're trying to bring some of that thought to the JavaScript world. So we're making testing sort of class citizen in Redwood. It's like ready to go. So you don't have to adjust or any of this stuff. It's all there ready. And we have a bunch of it. Whereas for seeding the database with this data and all that kind of stuff, we'll
do we use the Jest in the back end on Redwoods, or is it React Test Library?
So it's using Jest by default, and then we have a testing library added in there. I'll see some mock service worker.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest problem with testing is not an interest in testing. It has always been just simply getting it set up, and it always seems to be like some kind of problem. And I remember having a conversation with somebody from the community, and they said, yeah, actually, that's one of the things that's about the integration is just making it a lot easier, that workflow around testing, so that it's not an inhibitor to actually moving forward. That's supportive.
That's one of the biggest benefits of Redwood is just all this integration work is already done for you. So everything just sort of works right out of the box. You don't spend days and days and days for how to configure Webpack and ingest, and then it works. So our joke is we make Peter go through all that configuration hell so you don't have to.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Let's dive into, I think we're good though. We've covered some of the main sort of like a high level, right? So let's go back here. So this is where you start after tutorial 1.
Yep.
Right? So, all I did is I went to, let's see here.
We should say styled a little nicer. The one at the end of part 1 will be bare bones. It's just plain. We don't really plug in like I said. I don't want people to get like bogged down like where class names go and classes here, margins and padding. Don't worry about any of that. Just we're trying to get the fundamental Redwood in place. And now this repo is just out. I've added style up of that just so it looks a little when you're going through and add stuff.
Makes sense, because then moving forward also it's easier too, right? And anytime somebody feels like they can, I can build a blog with an admin area and everything like that, then it's like, well, maybe I'll make my blog with this, and then I can just start layering on features and things over time, which is a really great way to like onboard junior developers, right? Because usually they always need a personal site, and you're basically already helping them get it some kind of basic personal sites. I know some really amazing developers that their personal sites look almost the same as this, this complex, right? And it's just to focus on content and on your portfolio, and that's it. And so I think it's really awesome.
That's kind of what we went with the blog. Awesome. It's a very sort of most people are used to log works, and everybody kind of wants to when you're first getting started. So building a blog with that was a very like lowest common denominator app to a little more than a app, but not like we're not going to build like a shopping cart and whole e-commerce system. It's just a nice middle of the road.
Totally. Yeah. And there's other example apps out there. So there's definitely, range. So this one's the really well structured, really well organized one that's designed to onboard you. And then you get familiar. And then there's like the to-do app. And then there's, I think, one other one that Tom did, David did, which is the to-do app, I think. And then there is actually, I think, an e-commerce one, isn't there?
I think Peter did like an invoicing.
Invoicing. That's what it is. Yeah. Not really e-commerce, but I don't know why it's stuck in my head that way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So does this all work? Like if I click save here, yeah, there we go. Cool. And then you got your about page, and then we were just on the contact page, and this is Netlify's login system, authentication system. And then each blog post, there we go. And what you'll notice is the URL changes, but not the entire page, right? Because we're using like a sort of a React router type thing, right?
Yep.
Cool. So let's switch. I think we'll switch back to code now, right?
Yep.
And we'll see where we get to. Let's see. There we go. Okay, and then pop that back up so that, let's see, I think that's maybe one bigger, just to, what do you think? That looks like the right size, I would say.
Yeah, seems good.
Okay.
There's like black bars on the side. Looks like it'll let you later. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I like width anyway, so it works for me when I'm coding.
Okay.
So there's so this is the terminal down here at the bottom. And if you'll notice, if I scroll all the way up here, all I did is clone it. The dot just means to clone it into the directory I'm in. They give you, or Rob's README gives you an example of cloning it into a directory that you name, and they give you a name. I think it's like Redwood blog or something. I had already named it, and then their instructions are to yarn install, which I did. It took a long time, so we did it before. Then I filled the very next instruction. I just copied and pasted. It was a migration of the database. What happens when we do that command, actually, Rob, the Prisma migrate dev? What's going on there?
Yeah, so we're starting out with SQLite, which is just a file-based database. It's even available. So the SQLite like binary stuff is available like on Macs by default. So kind of already has it. And if you don't, it comes with Prisma. So there's like a version of it that Prisma itself will install. So it creates a database, and you'll see that API DBB. See, there's dev.db. And what it is now these migration files, these are actually in the code base. So every time you get change to your database, you snapshot that change and it turns into a migration. A migration says how to go from what the database is now to what you want it to look like. So you can see there, if you look at Sigma Prisma, that's the structured database written in a Prisma schema DSL. Mm-hmm. And then when you snapshot the database, the schema, it creates a migration file. And in the migration files, if you open one of those up, to open up that directory there with timestamp 2020, just creates a flat SQL file. And the SQL file says to get the database to the right state. So when you run that command, migrate dev, it basically runs these SQL files against the base and adds all that it needs.
That's awesome. So all that happened, and all I did is type, what was it? Yarn RW, which is short for Redwood. You can type both. So yarn RW Prisma migrate dev, and all those things that Rob just described happened seamlessly, as you can tell, because it's all green with a minor warning, which is nothing compared to any other npm install.
We're changing that
normally
too.
There's way more.
In upcoming version, we're switching over to that new instance. That warning will go away too.
Oh, that'll be great. Yeah. But I mean, that's still better than most things you install, right, in the NPM world. Almost every time I talk to students or anything about it, they're just terrified. They see yellow, yellow, red, and they don't know what to do. And so then this is telling you what happened, right? So as a user, you can see this is where the SQL database is that Rob talked about, and then that this was what happened with the migration. And actually, it's a lot of really cool steps are actually well described inside of Prisma, RedwoodJS. So I think that's pretty amazing. And then, so then we see the database, and that comes from, where was it? Was I looking at me? No. See, there we go.
Yep.
And if you look here, you see all of the posts that Rob created. So all that data, all that content that you saw, that's all here in the seed, right?
Yep, and the seed file is just a convention like you need seed.js, and then Prisma will look for a file that's named that and just run it through Node. So you would run, you'll see if you scroll a little bit, there's basically that await db post find many. So you're writing Prisma commands to check records that exist. So leave them alone. If they don't exist, create them. And it just seeds, so it puts data in your database and want to be there when you start.
Nice. So just simple, easy peasy, just following essentially your model, right? Because all of these apply to your model. And then that runs, and then your database, it says here, your database has been seeded. That was 11 seconds with streaming, camera, mic, name it, glitches and everything. That's how long it took, which is not great, not fast, but very fast considering all those consequences that are happening in the background. And then I just did yarn Redwood dev or yarn RW dev, and then that spun up our little server, and then that was the demo that everybody saw, the Redwood blog demo. And that's where we're starting, right there. So right on. So this is exciting.
Yep.
So, okay.
And you can see in your logs that some of them, some lines are with web and some are prepend API. So there's two sides to every Redwood app. There's the back end API side and the front end web. Two directories in the file structure. There on the left, you see API directory and a web directory. So you're creating both halves within one repo.
Yeah.
Both running. There's a web server running and the API server running simultaneously. So you can see what's doing what in your log output, which is nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. I've always liked that when I first started using it, because I didn't understand where there was a handoff happening.
Yeah.
You know, and you're dealing with GraphQL, and it's like, oh, I'm making a request here, but it's going there, and there was some, because I was new to GraphQL. That was like literally fresh start for me when I looked at Redwood. And so, yeah, I definitely found that having that information included was a huge benefit. Still took me a while to learn, but at least had some kind of grounding before I, stood on my own lip.
Yeah, before I started with Redwood, I never used GraphQL either. I was a RESTful endpoint guy. Ruby on Rails loves RESTful endpoints, so that's all I ever worked with. So GraphQL was a whole different universe for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of differences, but I don't know. What do you think when you get a little further along, like just past introduction, to it, and you're like, okay, I understand how to query and I understand how to mutate. It actually starts to look a little bit more similar, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. At first, it's scary because you don't know what the heck is going on. Yeah, as you start learning about it more and more, then you start things kind of converging. You're like, oh, it's the same concept as this. That's the same concept as this. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So to anybody out there, if they're new to GraphQL, that's something to be aware of, that there's definitely that initial friction when you're like, why do I need to learn this thing? But definitely whatever you came in with, whatever knowledge you came with, like SQL or using an ORM in the past, you'll probably find there's more similarities than differences once you get past that initial barrier, initial language barrier.
Yeah, and eventually, like we had this API side and this web side, but the theory you want, an unlimited number of sides. There might be a mobile side, or that's your mobile apps is in here. But your mobile app will also talk GraphQL. So GraphQL becomes like the universal translator between these different sides, front and mid back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yep. No, that totally makes sense. That's one of the biggest reasons for, I think, GraphQL's popularity initially. I don't know if it's still the case now, but I know that you heard about it a lot when GraphQL first came out, is it allows you to build a lot of custom applications and a lot of custom sort of view layers to different things, and you can interact with the GraphQL layer really easily. And so, yeah, at least that was the impression I got. I don't know if that's...
Yes, like the traditional REST endpoint is like, if you want your blog post, you're going to get the title and the ID and the date was created, and everyone get that no matter what. That it's like RESTful thing, right? Those 3 data points. But with GraphQL, you can say, hey, I only want the ID, or I only want the title. And you don't have to rewrite a different endpoint to return that data. GraphQL, that's just the way it works. You front end can specify what data it wants and only get that data. So it can be more efficient over the wire and stuff like that too.
Cool.
Okay, so that's great that we demoed all this, but in Control C and can all that, because we're gonna run store instead. It has its own server. So now you Yarn RW Storybook.
Yarn RW Storybook, like that.
Yep. And you'll see this will have a bunch of log output. And this usually takes a little longer to start. There's a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes. I think they're working on speeding this up. This isn't Redwood's fault, just the way Storybook works. See here is that this percentage counts up as it's going through all these stories. And if you want, we can look at it. Well, this is building. So when it started tutorial 2, we do Storybook. We talk about this. So if you go to the web path.
Okay, let me just pop it up. Tutorial 2. There we go. And of course, I have to turn it on. There we go.
We go to introducing Storybook, introduction to Storybook. It's like the third, yeah.
Cool.
Whereas you'll see this of course when it comes, and then you'll see you scroll down there, you'll see if you're using the generators to generate files, basically the frame of a page component. 2 other files is a .stories file and this file. And the .stories file works with Storybook, and the .test file works with the test suite, which was a minute.
Yeah.
But you'll see here, this is this is what a story looks like. It looks just like basically like a component. It's just exported. Oh, there's your Storybook started up.
Yeah.
So there you go. So there's like a single blog post, like when you're viewing it on the site. But now here's just one of them isolations. So you'll see there's components. Was it components was generated? Yeah, generated it, like Redwood generated it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you there's other ones there's one for cells, there's one for layouts, there's one for paste. So we've had storybook stories for a lot of these. So if you used cells yet in Redwood, you know there's like 4 states: success, loading, failure. You can see all those in isolation. So lots of times, you're building like a loading page on your site. You're trying to like fake to get stuck in the loading states. You can long enough to be able to add cells and change it. Well, here in Storybook, you can just go to loading and say, I want to look at loading, and it just sits there and just shows you the loading one. You change all your styles, and it's refresh as you go. And you do this layouts in the pages. Okay, yeah. So if you go back to the code, to the VSS code.
Ooh, that looks a little more recognizable. Let's take a moment. There we go. So. There.
Yeah, so it's like the pages, right?
So back to the code. Code it is. Yeah, they really have to.
Can you swap between the code and the browser, or do you have to unshare and share every time?
I have to share and unshare every time.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's because I use Restream Studio, but I'm actually planning on setting it up so that I can do it with OBS in the future. So. So by the time we do another one of these, Rob, if I can convince Rob to come back, then we'll probably be a little bit more hot dogging on this. So Cool. So I got it going. So what do you want me to pop out of the terminal here? Keep it rolling.
Yeah, I got VS Code back up. So we'll code changes now. And it's a shame because it'd be neat if you could see live as they're changing. But
there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about sharing my whole screen. I mean, if
you could, there'd probably be that. Because as you're saving these, you'll see Storybook like refresh on the fly.
Okay, let's try
It'll
that.
Be tough. It's gonna be tough to stop sharing, and reshare.
Here, let me give you. I'll let you monitor the YouTube stream just to make sure that there's no issues that I need to be aware of, because that's really my biggest concern when I have one screen going. So I'll send it to you. There you go. I'll send it to you here, okay, Rob? And then if you could keep it open on yours, and then just let me know if there's anything. Let's see. So I got the tutorial open, I got the storybook open, and the code. Okay, cool. So I'll minimize. Go back, share the whole window. This is bravery right here. Sharing my whole window. There we go. All right. And there we go. And now I'm going to close this. And then we'll go left side. Let me know if I need to make stuff bigger too for YouTube, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it can stand to be. Says is make the text as big as you can stand it.
That's what I'm thinking. Good thoughts. Okay. I think I could do one more on the code side. There we go. I think I'm all right now.
Yeah. There we go.
So, and I think I could stand to give myself a little bit more code room, I think, because I don't think we're too concerned. Okay, so I got the tutorial right here too.
Great. Okay, so that's just, that's what kind of showing you through. So if you in your files, so they're on the left, you can open up web and you can see what these files. So if you go web, and this is going to be in SRC. Components.
Components.
And blog posts.
Anyway, blog posts. Okay.
So blog post, right, is the post itself. Here's the stories that you blog post, and you can see at the top imports blog post. And then it actually just returns blog post, but it passes in the test data. So of course this data isn't coming out of the data, but we're just faking it. We're saying, hey, pretend this is the you're going to show, and it's now showing in Storybook. So you see its first post, and then for taco, hot chicken. That's a hipster some generator. Third one. See down there at the very bottom that default export there. That's how you determine sort of the tree structure. So that's why it's in a directory called components blog post. Is that's how you export that. What we're going to do now.
Okay. Right. That's how it reads here as the tree, right? That's what you mean by this right here. Yeah. Yep. Okay. That makes sense. Is this using the latest storybook, like the latest major version? Because I know they made a big change in November, I think it was. think it was November last year.
I'm not sure. I could check and see. Let's see, web packages.
Because I remember
in there.
I remember doing some work on it, and I was like, "What?" Because I was trying to become better at it, and there was some substantial differences.
I've got 3. I'm not sure what the latest is. That's the tough thing with running a Frick is like everyone's packages and versions are constantly being upgraded, so you're always like one step behind trying to keep everybody. And someone has released, and something on your end breaks, and
so they're saying 6.2. Yeah, it was 6 though. I think it was 6. Let me look back here. 2 days ago. Okay, so let's go back. Let's see. It might be maybe they're going really, really fast, and it's actually 5. But I know there was some substantial changes at the last version. Let's see. So it's going back, and we're in January now. I bet you it is 6. That's what I'm guessing. It's 6. Okay. So there were some substantial changes at 6. Yeah. So just a comment. I'm just thinking out loud. That's all.
Yeah, I'll have to bring that up with the group. See if anyone's looking at that. Focus on.
Yeah. I don't think that anybody expects a lot of changes, but I remember when I was trying to to build out I have a component that there was a really nice way of doing this, right? Where I'm guessing you actually did it where this is actually amalgamation of smaller components, right? And
well, I mean, it's actually
super easy.
I mean, the page just itself happens to be using components, so that's what shows when you do it in Storybook. But maybe they have some helpers to improve that.
I remember with pre-5, and I haven't been able to figure out how to do it in 6, but pre-6. So I guess I'm going to get my numbers messed up. But the previous to this current version, they made it really easy for you to build a bunch of small components and then actually to just call them into a larger component. So you can start to and I thought that was amazing. And then I tried to learn it in 6, but it was just, the information just wasn't there. So
okay.
For somebody like me. But anyway, we're digressing. I'm digressing.
Okay. That's okay. Okay, so if we're going to go with tutorial, go tutorial as it's printed, what we're going to do is we're going to make a summary function, right? So on the home blog, rather than showing the full blog post in line and whole blog post down the page, it'll show the first couple sentences, and it'll have read more to go and view the full page, kind of a standard blog layout thing, right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put summary. We're going to put us into the blog post component. So that same blog post component you had open.
Okay, just 1 second. You know what I'm going to do, Rob? I'm going to send you a link to the VS Code too, so that way you can get right in the code. I mean, instead of having to tell me every little step, it'll be easier for you. So I don't know if you're set up with Live Share.
I am not. How do I do that?
All right. So you go like this. This is actually a good one for anybody to learn. So Live Share. So you just go into your extensions here, and the best thing to do is to install the extension pack, which I have. Yes, I do. And then you do a click to sign. You just do what's down here. Let me just show you. What's the best way to show it? So then you can go into your command palette. So you just go to command palette and you go Live Share. And then there should be somewhere in here, it should say to join a call or sign in. There should be a sign in. You can actually click the link I sent you and you'll be asked to sign in. That's what most students do. And the only reason I say students, I feel like I'm saying something negative towards Rob. So let me clarify. I work with students a lot, so I use Live Share a lot. So it's probably not something that lots of developers spend a lot of time on unless it's like company culture. So, don't nobody think that I'm saying something negative.
No.
You know what I mean? I know, Rob, I know you don't think I'm saying something negative, but I don't want anybody to think that I'm like passively aggressively putting you down or something weird. People think some strange things nowadays, right? So, but yeah, so it's really cool because you'll be able to hop in. There you are.
Okay.
And there. Now you're in.
So it wanted me to sign it. It skipped that, so I don't have to sign.
Well, let's hope you can edit. You may not be able to edit if you don't sign in. So you can sign in with your GitHub, which is handy. And since Microsoft owns GitHub.
Yeah, let me edit. Okay, so I need to. So now I lost the thing. So let me command palette, live share, sign in, GitHub, allow. Give them permission to delete all of my repos. Okay.
Let's see if I can upgrade you from this side. Make read and write.
It says signing in. It looks like it's reloading VS Code.
This is fun.
Joining
because I've been meaning to do one. There we go. You're in. As soon as it says accept. That's sometimes the only questionable part. There's Rob. You see the pink right here? There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I actually, I'm in another Discord group, and I started doing this with some of the people whenever they ask, and if I'm able to help, I do this with them, and they're just like, oh my God, this is so much better than describing the problem and giving screenshots. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you're not behind an NDA, just throw in one of these. And then the other thing you can do is if you want to pair code it, you can even use git duck. So that's pretty cool. So if anybody hasn't seen that, then I'm going to end up doing a demo on this one. But it's like a really cool pair coding technology. So yeah.
Git duck. I hadn't heard of that one either.
Well, we can do it together if you want.
Well, but how's it different than just live sharing it here? What does git duck do that code this live one doesn't do?
Oh, longer conversation. Okay. And I keep taking us off track. It's your job to keep me from going off track.
Okay, don't talk about that.
All right.
Well, you want me to just start going? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go. Let's start going. Just let's talk about it, and then I'll ask you questions as you go.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna take this post out of here, and rather than make this in, I'm just gonna put this in a constant here. Right. So this, and then we can just do like this, right? And I just saved it. So storybook. Maybe your storybook and your other half. We can say like updating as we go.
Do we need needs to be big POST, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
That's cool. I will follow in behind you like that whenever I see.
Okay. And then do you have storybook on the right? We can just make sure I didn't break anything.
Ooh, I got it open. Right on. Which one? Blog post.
There. Yep. Cool. And see, right, like if I delete something out of this body and I save it.
I already did these cool exclamation marks before and they're gone. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add summary functionality. So I'm gonna come over here to your blog post. Right. And by default, it's gonna just always show the full blog post body. There's no other option. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce my truncate function. So when you call Kate, you give it some text. You can say characters true. And then I'm going to use that down here instead of post body, and I'm going to call truncate. So I'm going to add a pop-up here. So now when you call blog post, you're going to give it the post display, and you're also passing summary. You're going to say true or false. And if it's true, it's going to truncate to 100 characters. If you say false, otherwise it's just for the full body, right? So if I save that, and hopefully still work in let me put your window over here to the side so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, great. So now what we want, but now we want to see those two states, right? We want to see what it looks like in summary mode and what it looks like not in summary mode. And traditionally you'd have to go in, you'd have to do some on your page, whatever. You'd have to add blog posts and one not. Right, reload it, load it, see it or not. But you can do all this storybook. So we're gonna come over here in storybook, and we have this generate one. We're gonna add a new one. We're gonna call this free. Let's storybook updates here. Hopefully there should be 2 of them.
I'll refresh. That's the one thing I will say about Storybook is sometimes its refresh is not reliable. To anybody who's new to it, don't panic if you have to do a command control or command refresh. It just is, and you might not run into it. Like you might work a whole project and it won't work like that, and then the next project you'll literally be like us right now, refresh. It's I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that they are working diligently to fix it. But just don't panic if it doesn't refresh. Just go old school.
But now that you did refresh, now there's two options under there, right under blog post. Now there's generated, and right now the code itself, there's no difference between the two, right? So it's drawing the same thing for both. But now if we go in here and here, when we say summary equals true,
cool.
Now the summary story will invoke the blog component with the prop set to true instead of false. And assuming
did we save it? Oh, it didn't save it. It didn't save it. There's a delay. So do me a favor, when you click save, just say save and I'll save it. If it's still lingering, because through the live connection, sometimes there's like 4 or 5 seconds in that delay. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So see, now we didn't have to make like a weird test page or something on our site. Do it all in Storybook and see every possible state of a component by just passing in different data. And then they'll rename this one from generate. It's like full or something. Save on there. But now you can see like there's the full view and there's a summary view. Just makes a little more sense. Maybe they didn't rate it, right? That's
cool.
And there's all kinds of like Tom for this as part of Bug, this language learning app, where they might have 50 different locale flags, and we're going to try to display every flag possible in the code, where you just create a book with every possible instance, and you just go through and click through and see all my flags working. And I believe there's add-ons too. It gives you like a bottom pane, like switch variables out. You can do all in Storybook. We haven't got to that level yet, but so there we go. So now what we want to do, now we know our summary looks good. Now we want to use that on the actual site. So where we were saying that on your home page, it displays all the posts that would be right, and then you click through full view. So we'll go through to the blog post page, or the home page, I guess it is. Right, it's the home page that actually displays blog posts. And let me double check if I do this cell, or I do this in my component here. Yeah, right. I do it in the. Yeah, I do it in a cell. Okay, right. So the home page uses the posts plural cell, because it's going to show multiple posts, right? So the blog post cell plural blog posts cell, where it's calling blog post. Now we're going to say summary equals true. See that? I don't know if you see that file.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. Yeah. It's still coming in a little glitchy, by the way, just so you know. Somebody just flagged it for me.
My audio is glitchy?
Yeah. I don't know why, but it's outside of our system if it's happening. Like, it's outside of my system.
And try switching. Well, I'm going to have to reload. I was saying, try switching to my phone. I'm trying to use my nice number, but maybe it's like picking up some other room or something.
Yeah, no, it's like stuttering.
Really? Just all of a sudden?
Yeah. No, it's been like that. Like it came back again after we got everything good, and then it came back. But then I thought, I don't really know what the solution is, and I also don't know that it's beyond me. But then I got a message saying, "Hey, just so you know, that stream with Rob is actually coming in glitchy," and I think they're talking about like that sort of stuttering. Click, 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 click. It's literally like you're stuttering, except that A, I know you don't stutter, and B, it's like really bad stutter. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah. It's saying now my network is 0 of 10. My router's right here over my shoulder. Why restreamed like my network connection for some reason?
Do you want to do something extreme and then just come right back? I don't know. It's up to you.
Well, here. I mean, I can disconnect and reconnect here. I can try putting in I can get rid of my mic here and just use my AirPod mix and see if that does anything. Let me.
That's cool.
But I might have to reload. I don't think Chrome will let me switch my microphone without like reloading the page. So let me.
Might not. Yeah, that's okay though. As long as I stay on it, it pretty much stays stable.
Okay. So let me switch back to my AirPod. Then I will reload this page. Ready?
Can't see Rob, so we'll just hang out here. Let's see. I'll go back. There we go. Stop sharing that screen. Go back up here. So these things happen. Thank you so much to Alex now and Laura from earlier. So Rob is back now. He says he's in the backstage area, so we'll bring him back. How's it going, Rob?
Good, good. Can you hear me?
How does everybody think? We got Alex saying that you were glitchy too, confirmed it. So let's see if Alex will pop us back. And then, if Laura's still watching, just let us know. Please and thank you. Because sorry.
Well, my network connection is saying 9 out of 10 now. All I did was reload the page. I don't know.
You know what? I don't know why these things happen like this, because I have a pair of headphones that are wireless, and I used them for a whole year during COVID. I bought them in February when we started moving towards online. You could kind of see the writing on the wall. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, about a month and a half ago, they just stopped connecting. It's Bluetooth. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
What moving parts? How did it get worn out? I don't know. It's just the way it is. And so now I use the $10 Winners headphones, because who's going to spend money on headphones that are going to die in a year? Right. So, right. So, right. All right. So let's confirm. I'm sharing right again, please, for me, Rob, and we'll get you back. Put the show back on the road. We're going big screen and good. Okay, let's pop back. There we go. So you can see the screen and you're still in, right?
Yep. So if you, I don't know if that save probably went through by now, but so now if you go to like pages on the left,
okay,
and you go down to home page. Right. So now, we're seeing the summary now instead of the full thing. And if you go back to like a single, which was that blog post page. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, those are still working. But if you go down to the pages, blog post page.
I see that one.
Yep.
Under pages.
So that's where you're seeing the full blog post, because you're like on that blog post URL. But if you're back on the home page, you're only seeing the summary now. So there we go. So that's like our first usage of Storybook to do that. So you click on the title of the blog to go into the full blog post page. And this is all right. This is, of course, we're seeing this all in Storybook. If you were to start up Yarn Redwood Dev with the real server, it would be behaving the same there as well.
What if I want to put plugins in? Like, how abstracted away is Storybook? Like, is it easy to use Storybook plugins?
I have no idea what those are, so I couldn't tell you. What does Storybook have for plugins?
Well, I just noticed they call them add-ons, but plugins, add-ons, extensions. Let's not split hairs. But I'll tell you the reason that immediately comes to my mind for why I asked that was because of Figma designs. So I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it actually lets the designer that builds things in Figma directly import it into this bottom area down below. So what happens is you see a snapshot of that component in Figma. And so as you're developing the component above it, you're able to literally look at that, and then it has all of the specifications of that component, like color coding and everything like that, so that you're able to do that. And I think that one right there, and of course, the accessibility stuff goes, let's say it goes without saying, right?
So we're adding that in an upcoming release here of Redwood. The accessibility panel will be in there by default.
Oh, that's cool. Something like that should really be default. Figma panel designs, very, very popular, but not like a legal requirement in most of the developed world, right? But accessibility, come on. It's like building a building without a wheelchair ramp, or you know what I mean? You just don't do that. It's just not respectful, right? So I think that's super awesome that you're telling me that that's going to go into a not even 1.0 release, or will it be pre 1.0? I don't want to pin Redwood to the wall on this. So is it going to be pre 1.0 or?
I'm sure we'll probably try to get in there pre 1.0 just to make sure we have a couple eyes on it before it goes 1.0. And turns out we didn't hook something up right. But I just got a demo of that earlier today of adding that to there. So someone's already done it. So it's like ready to go. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be in 0.26, which is the next release, maybe 2.7 or 2.8, but it'll definitely be, I think, pre 1.0. Yeah.
That's amazing. So that's amazing. So yeah, so in essence, you knew what an add-on was, you just didn't realize it. So like
Yeah, right.
all of development, right?
Yeah.
Where we're like, oh, I don't know the word that you're using, but I probably know what you're talking about. And this was
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
those situations.
I mean,
Uh,
any time we've ever, when we're using Storybook, it's just we stick our component in there. So I would assume anything that's like the Storybook ecosystem will continue to work the way it always has, as long as it
cool.
can render a component. Yeah. Cool.
Because that's always the worry, right? That's always the worry. It's like convenience over, abstraction to the point where it's hard to use anything else, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, we definitely haven't forked Storybook or anything like that. So it's the real Storybook. We just like started up with Redwood's configuration like ready to go, so it knows where to find different things at. That's really the only difference. Yeah.
A lot of these things are basically command line based automations, right?
Right.
It's like you get to do all the cool Storybook stuff, not because you changed Storybook, but because the command that you entered ran some pretty standard commands that you would run normally anyway on Storybook, or took those commands and just automatically integrated them. So yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for clarifying that, Rob.
Yeah.
To me as well, because I didn't know.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's Storybook. So if we want to write a test now around that summary functionality that we built, well, it's going to have to sneeze. Okay.
This is when you ask Rob a question when he's about to sneeze.
So if we go back and let's see, if I change files, will it change on your end? No, it doesn't. Does it?
Yeah. No, it does.
I mean, it's just like open. But if I'm opening different files, are they opening on your side as well? Well, I guess they are.
Oh no, that kind of split view. Like if you have two different, no, it won't. It'll just show whichever one you're active on at any given time. But so that means, but that's good because from a video recording point of view, the user doesn't become confused on which panel you're actually on because they only see the one panel active.
Right.
So yeah, so we're there now, blogpost.js. Every time you move, we follow.
Okay,
so
cool.
There's a pin at the top here. It's green on my screen.
Yep.
Right at the very top, you see it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when that's off, I don't follow you. You can disappear. But when it's green, it follows you around wherever you go.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so there's blog post, right? That's where we added our truncate and using it in here, and then we've got the blog post story. And then the third file that was created in here is the blog post test. So I've added a couple tests. Like this very specific thing about the exact structure of our blog post isn't pre-generated. So this is me like editing this and adding this in the repo. So this is the state you would eventually hopefully get to writing your tests for your components. So if you have a terminal window somewhere, you can run yarn rw test, and that should run the whole existing test suite. So all the tests that do exist should run.
Rw test, right?
Yep.
So just so everybody knows, in most situations that don't involve Redwood, all you would do is yarn test. So the very tiny little difference between them and everybody else is 2 letters. So,
and that's again, so
not a big learn.
Yeah, so we can hook into that command line and add some, properties that these test commands need, so they know where to find files. So just adding Redwood specific flags basically on the standard command line options. Yeah,
totally. And then the other thing I should say is Redwood is not this slow. It's called a 7-year-old MacBook Pro.
Yeah, and you notice there, I don't know if you noticed that it mentioned Prisma in there again. So we have a test database. In addition to your development database, is a separate test database that runs. And that's what all your test data will be going in and out of. So Prisma will run, and when you first run your test suite to make sure that test database exists and has the right structure ready to go. Okay, so we already got a failure. So if you scroll up, I'm not sure if this is because of something we did or just this repo is out of sync with something. Back a little bit. Oh, this is because of something we did. I actually talk about this exact thing in the tutorial. So the test. So the test that was in there, if you look at our test code.
One that's currently open?
Yep. So you can see it on here, right? So there's these 2 expectations. So we set up the post, right? And then we render blog post, just kind of like we did in the story. We rendered the blog post. And now what is rendered gets captured and put into that screen property. So the screen, and we're saying everything that was output in the DOM, find by text. So this text should be somewhere in the DOM. I want the title of the post, which it is. But the body, right, isn't necessarily in there anymore because now it's like summarized sometimes. So that's kind of where the failure comes in. Is because now the whole post isn't there anymore. It's a summary.
Right here.
So it doesn't,
you can see it.
And it's cool. So this is something that I think React Testing Library does this. So if there is a failure, it'll dump what is in screen. So you can look at it and say, oh yeah, that's right. That is missing. That isn't what I thought it was. So the change we're going to make here is write a test that captures the fact that it's now just the summary being output and not the whole thing. And I kind of get into some theory, like how specific do you want to get? Like you could just match it now, right? You could copy what is actually output there, Nutri Taco, hot chicken, and then ending with ... You could copy that and expect that to always be there. But then if the test data changes, the test is going to fail because you're looking for a very specific test. So again, I talk about the rationale through here. And I was like, well, the fact that we're summarizing it, we can probably make some assumptions, right? So it's probably not going to be the full text anymore because it's a summary. But there'll be a few words of the post. So what if we just check that the first few words are there, and that when it gets summarized, it ends in ... So we'll test for that instead. So we're not going to test for specific text. We're just going to test for like an amount of text and also a ... on the end.
That makes sense because that's super flexible, right?
Right. That's the idea. So if the test data changes, no big deal. It's still something. Something is summarized. The text is shorter than normal, and it ends with ... So what we're going to do here is scrolling through the actual output here, so I can copy and paste this text. Let's see. So I do this in the.
I pasted it in for you. Usually the console on live share is garbage.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Yeah. So you could do this. This is like what we're saying. It's probably not necessarily what we want to do, but you could just say you expect this text and this exact text to be what's in the document. And if you watch this in your test terminal there, if you scroll to the bottom, the test process is actually still running.
Yeah.
So when you save these changes, it'll rerun that test. Either if you change the test itself or the code that is being tested, it'll recognize that and then rerun the test. So it really helps with this test response cycle, like really fast going back and forth. Let's see, it looks like it was still looking for the full text, even though the summary is in there, which is weird. Scroll down a little bit. Oh, actually, let's go up to the top. See which file was it failed. That's actually the blog post cell test. That's the one that failed. So we're going to edit that test because the blog posts cell. Remember that's the one where we actually set summary equals true. You can see that there. Mm-hmm. So the test for that is what's failing because this test also assumes the full body is going to be in there, which it's not anymore. So we'll see. So what we're going to do is I'll just copy this out of the tutorial.
By the way, the feedback I heard was that it's good. It's much better now. So it was worth the effort.
My voice? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was weird. Things are like, I wonder if my Pretty Fire are fighting each other.
Sometimes keyboard shortcuts don't play out the same way.
Okay, so the original test, this stays the same, right? We still want the posts that are in, and I'll talk about this. This is these mocks. We still want these mocked posts, and we're still going to render in the cell. We have the success component. We're still going to render that. But now for each one, we're going to say, okay, for each post that was in this mocked data, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to say, we don't know, we're not going to assume 100 characters because that could change. That information belongs to the component. But we're going to say, okay, there's going to be probably at least 10 characters. So let's screw it. We'll say, we're going to say 10 characters. And then we also want it to end in ... So this means, right, this is regex for a literal period 3 times. So it's going to have whatever the body is, and then more text potentially, and then ending with ...
You're not one of those amazing 10 people on the planet that actually knows your regex that well, are you?
I am pretty good at regex. I actually want to do. I'm gonna do a series of videos on like time. It's time to learn regex. It's probably the title of my video. I want to do a YouTube series on that. It's not that bad. Everyone like mentally has like this mental block to it. It's actually not that bad. And once you know it, it's like you have a superpower. It's amazing.
You know, if you're gonna do it, do us all a favor and just do it as examples. Because I think that's the real big problem with it is like I've done videos on it, but it doesn't stick because it's just not connected. It's not connected to anything.
Yeah, they're like, here's the text: AAA, ABB, ABB, AC. You're like, what? What does this even mean?
Yeah.
So I want to do it like here, match an email address or match an IP address, like very common things that exist in the world, not just a random string of letters. Yeah, I hate it when people do that.
Yeah, or like, because then it's also, if you pick things that you find you use almost daily or every other day, then we'll also be like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. And it's in time, it's worth the time invested to remember.
Yeah, it's like the object-oriented examples where it's like class A and class B and class C, and A inherits from C. You're like, what? Just give me a real name of a thing. Give me animals or cars or something.
Yeah, or they always pick cars, and then it's like every example is cars.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's actually one of the reasons why I always loved Fun Function, because he always did like dinosaurs or dragons or something, and so it was like actually funny, and you'd laugh.
Right.
And he had this dragon that he'd always say was Snuffykins or Sluffykins or something like that. A dragon named Sluffykins. Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway, that's the only thing. I've tried to learn regex, and the only reason it hasn't stuck is because it's just always abstract. You're just literally learning the tech, and it's like, give me 10 things. Do 10 5-minute videos that are like, these are 10 things that if you invest the time to remember, you will use them 80% of the time. And then I guarantee you, everybody will love your videos. Guaranteed. I will watch them again.
Okay, great. Yeah, I got like my little list. I'm keeping track of like examples that I want to use and stuff like that. So, okay, so going back to our test here. Sorry. So we've got our posts, and there's going to be multiple posts. We don't know how many, right? That's another thing about the test is you don't want to be too specific, because then making one tiny little change and the test breaks. You're like, oh God. So here I'm not assuming how many posts are. I'm just saying for every post that exists, simulate a truncation, give me 10 characters, end it with ... And now I want the title to be somewhere in the document. I want the full text to not be in the document, right? Because the summary, so the full text should not be in there. And then I'm saying get by text, which lets you do a regex. And so here's the match to say a shortened version of the text and ... should be in the document. So now if we save this, and then whenever the save goes through and you're on your end and reruns. Let's see here. So let's see now, what is it complaining about? So now, was that the cell that failed again, or was that the?
Let's see, testing library unable to find an element with the text, the full text. It's
okay, cool. So, but this is blog.
Oh no, it's not looking for the full text. It's looking for this, the shorty, the summary.
Okay, but this is the blog post test. The blog post cell text should now have passed, right? So if you scroll down to blog post cell, we should see a pass by that one. It's kind of annoying when the error is in line, because it kind of separates each individual line. So there you go. So blog post cell now passed there at the bottom.
Yeah.
And the blog post, which is where we originally wrote the truncation, that's the one that failed. So now we got to go update that guy. So let's go back to blog post, where we actually wrote the truncation, right? So blog post cell shouldn't know necessarily about lengths of truncations and stuff like that. And then blog post test, we'll sort of do something similar here. So we'll do the same thing where we took this out. We'll take the full post out of here, and we're going to share this because we're going to add another test. We want to share this post between them. And we'll capitalize this guy. Oops. And now this will be a post. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another. So I'm going to say renders a blog post, like the full blog post. And I'm going to also render a summary of blog post. And this is where we're going to say summary equals true. And up here, just to be complete here, we'll say summary equals false. And then this, so instead of right in this one, this is just the pre-built test here. This is not the best practice, right? Because this actually like assumes the text. So we're going to take that out, and we're going to say expect screen. Let me clean this up here so it's a little easier to read. Expect screen get by text post.body post.title. Right, that's for the full blog post, and then the summary blog post. This. Oops. Oops. We'll do something similar. I think in this one I just cheated and said, because this is inside the blog post itself, let's just cheat and do this. Just keep it simple, keep it fast. This should output this, right, instead of the full thing. And then if we look back at your output, oh, I bet I didn't capitalize one of these. Yep. Let me try that again. Oh, let's scroll back up a little bit. Oh, sorry.
Right there on line 23, I think.
Oh, did I miss another one? No, oh, I thought I did. I thought I did change that. Okay.
I thought you did too, and then I think what happened was the linter just changed everything right when you did it.
Oh, there we go. Now we're back to a passing test suite. And if you press the letter A in that terminal window, A for all, so it'll rerun all the tests again, including the one, like by default, it wants to live in a little universe of just testing the ones that have failed. So if you want to go back and have it check everything. And there's some warnings in there. We're doing some fixings for these. This could not resolve. It actually does resolve it. It's just some weird output. So we're working on a fix for that too. But there you go. Everything's green. Everything passed.
It's an important moment to maybe remind everybody this is version 0.28. Wait,
2.5.
not 2.8. 2.5. Yeah. We were talking about 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, and now my mind is already jumping to the end. Yeah. So, but I think the goal is sometime in the next, maybe it's reasonable to say couple months now, or do you think 3 months is probably a better?
Yeah,
somewhere we were there hoping, is going to be one.
We were hoping for the first anniversary, the first birthday, which was March 11th, but we're probably not going to hit that, but we're getting close. So hopefully in the next couple of months. But I don't want to.
Couple of months seems like a more reasonable assumption, right? You know how it is when you get close. It's like moving out, right? You know, everything looks like it's all done, but this still took you 4 hours to do an hour's worth of work because there was way more stuff to get done than you thought, right? And I think that's really what happened, because originally it was even hoped for, I think, the beginning of January, the first week somewhere. But then, you know, little things get added in and everybody thinks that's really amazing. That should be a 1.0 release. And, you know, and despite the fact that so many people volunteer and support this group, there's just tons of work to do. And
it's always more than you think.
So
there's that famous saying, the first 90% of a project takes 90% of the time, and the remaining 10% of the project takes the other 90% of the time. Always ends up being more than you think. Yeah. So the big three things we want to get in there are pre-render, which is about to be released in 0.26. Pre-render is going to blow people's minds.
Is that the SSRE type stuff?
There's so many different acronyms, and everyone like confuses each other with the acronyms. But basically, like at build time, it'll React render the code and then write it out to a flat HTML file. And then, you know, for like your marketing page, when you get there, the marketing page loads instantly, and then React kicks in and rehydrates it and makes it interactive again. So
a little bit like static pages in Next.js then.
Yeah, some people refer to it as SSR, some people call that SSG. Like, I never know which acronym it is anymore. But to do that, like, the one thing you need to do, check this out, is in your routes file. So your routes define, you know, all your paths. Let's see if I scroll, let's scroll. Yeah. So you basically do this. And that's it. That's the whole API. You write pre-render, and now you have a static page that rehydrates for you, and there's nothing you have to do. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
But it's a lot of work to it's a lot of work to make it that easy to do.
Oh, for sure, right? Yeah. That's the irony, right? Is the simpler you make it, the more complex it is. That's really going on behind. So that's really awesome. So I know that, by the way, I totally got nailed on this one when I did your tutorial originally. I forgot to do the int.
Oh, the int, to cast it into an integer for us, yeah.
So,
when we did the very first version of the router, we didn't have that. And everything was strings, and you had to change them into inside your components and stuff. And then we came up with that sort of interface for it. Yeah. So the big three things for 1.0 are pre-render, which is looking really good. Accessibility, so like a route announcer and stuff like that. When you change pages, we don't have anything like that yet. That's coming. And then, like we said, adding the accessibility plugin to Storybook, stuff like that. We're going to have a accessibility ESLint as well. So even in VS Code, if something doesn't have an alt tag, for example, you get like the red squiggly under an image tag, stuff like that. And then the third thing is we want to kind of finish off TypeScript. So there's still some parts that aren't TypeScripted fully.
So when you say that, you're talking about back-end TypeScript, right? Not
so as you're importing
TypeScript on the developer side, like the use whose side do I want to say? The developer side, like the side in which we develop. Like I would build something, a website, right? You're not talking about that TypeScript. You're talking about TypeScript as far as the library, the framework goes. Is that what you mean? Or
I get confused too, because I'm not really a TypeScript guy, so I was confused the two. But what we mean is when you're importing like Redwood packages to use like auth and stuff like that, that you'll get, you know, hints and stuff in VS Code because it's fully TypeScripted. You'll see like what types are available to use and stuff like that. So I want to say we're like 80-90% of the way there. There's a couple issues that are tracking the progress in Redwood's app. You can generate TypeScript now, like on a few of the generators. If you do -- TypeScript, you get the TypeScript version instead of the JavaScript version.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we're more concerned with the Redwood itself being TypeScript supported. So we import those packages, you get hints.
Yeah, but I heard it's just installing TypeScript, and it's almost like right out of the box. Just you can write TypeScript if you want.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Yeah, that's cool. Right on. All right, let's see. What do we got? What else we got? What are some other big ones?
I'm not gonna, how
Let's
much time do
see.
we have? I could talk about those.
Most people start to curl their ears after an hour. We only got rolling about an hour ago. So let's take a look here. We got our story, our first test. What's the multiple comments one? What was the multiple comments one?
So we basically just added a simple storybook and test. Then we get into actually like building the components or the comments itself. So you build the schema, you build the GraphQL, SDL, the service, and then you add tests for all those. So that's a little more in depth. Like if you get started, you'll get like two steps into it, and then it'll be gone. I can show what these mocks were. The standard.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
So
Cool.
These are specific cells.
Sorry, I was just going to say, but because we were thinking about this would probably be a part one, and then there would be a part two anyway.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, let's finish it in a way that like we don't make it janky for the part two, so that people can be like, I saw part one, now I can, slide into part two. So that's the only thought that's going through my mind. Whatever we introduce now, let's just keep that in mind, and then that way.
Yeah, okay, cool. So we won't get into comments because that's kind of a bigger thing. But I can just show this. This was in this cell test, and there's this weird.
Do I need to click on anything on the right?
No. Are you seeing my highlighting as I'm going through?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you're seeing this. You're like, what the heck is this thing? And if you look up here,
totally,
it's importing this from this mock file. So when you use Redwood's generators and you generate a cell, you get a fourth file. So you got the JS file, you got the stories file, you got the test file, and you get this mock file. And the mock file is your data. And the reason this is a separate file has to do with, the way the cells work is in most cases, cells will be making a GraphQL call out to get data and then return it. But in the cells, we really don't want to exercise like the full GraphQL stack and have it go back to the service and have Prisma kick in and Prisma talks to the database. You don't want to test that. That's up to the services to test. You just want to make sure the cell reacts properly to the data that comes back. So by putting this in this mock file, we can basically intercept those GraphQL calls and return this instead.
Oh, that's amazing.
And the real amazing part is when you get into like a page. So let's say you have the home page here, right, which renders the cell, and you put this in Storybook. Well, Storybook only cares about this home page thing. It doesn't know that there's a cell in there. And by the way, this cell is going to run GraphQL. So Storybook doesn't care. It'll try to really run the GraphQL. So by putting this in this mock file, we can intercept it. We say, okay, we see that a child component that's being rendered is a cell, and stop that GraphQL call and return the mock instead. And by default, it'll always use the standard mock. Like here, we happen to also be using standard to display it here, but it's when it's one of these nested things in Storybook. So this kicks in, the cell gets intercepted, the GraphQL call gets intercepted, and we return the standard mock always. So you can count on like a standard response always coming back from cells when they're being shown in Storybook or in the test suite.
I like that.
Yeah, and you can make additional one of these. So if this is the interesting thing now. So now you want to test another state. You want to test like bad posts, and bad posts don't have a title or something. So you can mock up data that's incorrect and then use that in your test. You can come in here and you might have another one of these, and instead of standard, now you're also going to use bad posts, and you can use bad posts here. And you can test that something else occurs instead. So you kind of have these little snippets of test data that you can give a simple name to and reuse throughout your tests and throughout your Storybook.
Question that came to my mind right away was, for certain types of standard data, like profile data, let's say, is there a way to bring it up the tree, so to speak, and maybe put it into the parent, like into components, and allow that mock data to be imported over and over again?
So like if you had a mock that kind of depended on other mocks, you mean?
More like, let's say, that's actually right. You know what? Actually, that's right. What you just said is right.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping you, right? You could just say import, I guess it would be called standard in the other mock as well, but then you could rename it here, right, as profile standard or something. And you'd say from SRC components, whatever your thing is, profile.mock, whatever, right?
Something
like that. And then in here, right, you can just say profiles is, profile standard.
Okay.
So the result of that mock will now be inside this mock, and then you can like nest these mocks, right? So yeah, you only have one standard profile defined somewhere, and the other ones can share it rather than everyone redefining their own version of profile or whatever.
Totally. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
look what you just did with 1 line of code or 2 lines of code.
Yeah, and because this is a GraphQL call, there's other stuff that comes in with the GraphQL, like on a mutation, right? There'll be variables available, and there'll be a context. So you can start doing stuff like intercepting these contexts, and you could say, you know what, context. You can do this like in Storybook, like if you know there's going to be a delay for something and something else should happen, you can say delay 1500. So before this response comes out, it'll actually wait a second and a half, or GraphQL will, this context on this GraphQL will delay, and then return your data. Or you can return an error here. Like you can do all kinds of weird stuff and make sure that your cells respond to errors the way you think they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get pretty complex.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm writing up a whole testing doc. I can post a link. It's still in a PR, so it's not finalized yet. Let me get the link to it.
Okay. Yeah. Just pop it into either commented or commented on my tweet for our chat, YouTube, or pop it into the private, and I will do it.
Let's see, is it 5? I always forget the number here, but it's up to like 8,500 words, like a whole testing treatise on how to do testing in Redwood, and it talks about all these different scenarios of setting these variables and stuff. I can't find the thing now. I'll find it and add it to the. I guess it's a 530. This is the one. Docs testing. I know you guys can't see this. This is probably very interesting for everybody.
That's all right.
Can I put it in the chat? Oh, it won't let me put it in the chat, will it?
I don't know if you can, but that's okay. If you do put it in the chat, I will put it into the chat.
I just put it in the private chat there. Yeah. So that's a deploy preview. That's a preview deploy this testing doc, but yeah, it goes into much more in depth of all these different testing things you can do.
There we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to go through. But once you know it all, makes app development much nicer.
I'll tell you, it is a bit overwhelming in the beginning to understand so where I struggle is between cells and the API when it comes to services. Let's see. So functions, because it's on Netlify, you always use functions, the functions directory. Well, it's common to use functions to write basically what ends up going into services. And then I always find there's a little bit of confusion about what I should put into a cell versus what I should put into a service and how that interaction should go. So so the cell is always your getter. The cell is like, the cell wants data, and it's going to get that through that query. There's a constant query you output at the top, and you can open up one of those cells. You'll see one in there, like if you go to a blog post cell. So there's the query at the top, right? And that's just GraphQL. Yeah. And then what that GraphQL actually does, like what a post is and how that gets returned, that's in your service. So your service is actually responsible for getting the post out of the database and then giving it back through the GraphQL interface. So one of the things that, so that query there is post singular, right? And it accepts an ID. Yeah. So now if you go to your post service, posts.js, and there's a singular method there on line 8 post, and it takes an ID. So that GraphQL call equates to that service. And that's just naming convention. So we automatically take all these services and make them available as GraphQL endpoints, naming the exact same thing. These are the resolvers for the GraphQL, basically. So the thing for me was, one of the things that I struggled with, just let me close a couple things so I don't get lost in the code in front of me, was I didn't understand what this was doing here. I know there's so many like extra names. That's just GraphQL standard, like you name your query. And that kind of that if you get involved with caching and stuff, the caching is like based on that name. Yeah. Which here we're not, like in this example, we're not really caching anything. So you can actually, it is valid, I think, to not even have a name there. You can just say query curly bracket and define it. You don't have to name it, but you probably want to, because anything else you're going to do is going to want that name. Yeah, that was one thing that threw me off in the beginning and that actually confused me with regards to this. So having the posts and posts, because I was like, okay, so that's there where, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
We're
was
talking
one
about
of the
doing it.
ones.
We're talking about doing a series like learn GraphQL the Redwood way. So we like, assuming you don't know any GraphQL, here is how it works, and here's how it works in Redwood to kind of
Yeah.
teach a lot of these concepts. So most people don't know Prisma, don't know GraphQL, so we kind of want to teach them from scratch, but within the context of Redwood.
That'd be really cool. We should do that as a live stream, Rob.
Well, yeah, I'm working with David. We kind of have some plans for a whole series of videos or write-ups he wants to do. So I don't know where he's thinking about that yet, but
I'll hassle him.
the problem is you do it live. I can't like I need time to like sit down and re-review it and write it out and think about like the nicest way to say it. It's tough when I'm doing it live. I can't like filter my thoughts.
Don't worry, I will always be there. I'll be there to be back up because anybody who live streams knows that it's easy to step on your lip, like super easy. You say the wrong thing and you're just like, okay, so let me explain myself. So it's always nice to have like a buddy there that's like listening. Like this is way safer. Right?
Yeah.
When I do it solo, there is nobody there to save me. And sometimes there's maybe one viewer and they might find it more amusing to just let me hang myself. So, but when we're together like this, if you make a goof, it's easy to see. And it's just like, so Rob means this. So, and you're like, oh my God, that's not what I meant. Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you, Roger.
Right.
And I find that can even happen in a video, right? Because you just don't see yourself, right? So, but anyway, we digress. We're actually done, right, today, because we went through that item that we were just talking about. So, and we don't want to keep anybody any longer during their workday. Their bosses are probably coming in and saying, "Is it still happening? Is it still happening?" When are you going to write some code? That's what I pay you for. So, yeah, Rob, like, thanks so much for like dropping in and showing everybody that stuff, myself included, because I'm still trying to understand everything with Redwood, and I do think that one of these days we should do. I have an idea for the To-Do app. There's actually no To-Do app for that standardized version of the To-Do app.
It's a real world.
Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's something like that. But you know which one I'm talking about. Like everybody has done it, and I actually looked, and there isn't one for Redwoods. And I'm probably giving it away by saying it on a live stream. But actually, if nobody gets to it before, I was actually thinking that'd be a really cool one to do together.
Oh yeah, I thought I saw somebody mention doing that. Was that you though? Maybe it was you.
Probably was me.
Did you mention it in the forums about doing that? I thought somebody said they were going to do it. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
I've been meaning to do it for like 2 months, but I keep not being able to spend enough time on Redwood and to learn it, because it's hard to do it. And when you do it, you want to do it right because you're going to submit it, right? So but yeah.
And it's just a standard. It's a standard To-Do app. I've never actually looked into what the actual app is that they build.
Yeah, it's a very specific type of To-Do app, and it has very specific actions and everything like that. For example, like the CSS, you can steal 80% of the borrow 80% of the CSS because you're not trying to reinvent the wheel for CSS. You're just trying to show how your code looks doing the same thing so that people can relate it and see the pros and cons really easily.
Yeah, this is a medium. This is a medium clone. So is it actually a blog? I've already got that. We're already done.
To-Do app.
I'm on Go Thinkster / Real World. Isn't that the famous one?
To-Do MVC. That's what it is.
Oh, that's another one. That's a different one. Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was about this Real World one.
Yeah. No. To-Do MVC. That's why I was like, what's the Real World one? Real World To-Do? Is that what it's called?
Just it's like Real World app, and it'll come up. It's like the first
Real World app. Okay, because I put in Real World To-Do and I got something else.
But it's basically like you write the front end in one, you write the back end in another, and you can like mix and match the front end and the back end because the API is the same.
Or you
So
can
I
have
could
both.
run
Like I'm
from-
assuming if you submitted a Redwood one, it would have the same front and back. But
Yeah, that's the thing. It's supposed to be as minimally only different based on the eccentricities of whatever tooling you're using.
Right.
So interesting thing. I just saw this. I heard this the other day. So I don't know. Do you know who Scott Talinsky is?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Just I only ask because I ask as opposed to assume because I know you're a Ruby background, right?
Mhm.
And so Scott Talinsky and Wes Boss do a syntax podcast, and I just heard the other day Scott Talinsky said that he was they're rebuilding his entire tutorial backend, like he has this big e-commerce system, and they're actually throwing out all the tests and just going with Cypress.
What? Wow.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if it's going to be a good idea or not, but he's like, I love Cypress. It's easy. I can do a lot of integration, end-to-end testing. And he's like, ultimately, that's all I care about. He's like, if it works the way it's supposed to work, that's what matters. And I was like, this is a really fascinating thing. But the cool thing is he's going to try it, right? And then he'll be able to talk about it, the pros and cons, right? So.
DHH, the founder of Rails, he was always about that for a long time, like integration tests. Like, as long as the site works and returns to the user what it should return, what does he care how some random internal function rounds off a number? Like, he does, as long as the right number shows up to the user, that's all he cares about. So he was always big on integration testing. He calls them system tests now. The whole thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think if you're a small team, it's probably manageable. Like I think it's just him mostly. So I think at the end of the day, he's able to see everything that's in the system. But if I'm working with you, or let's say the Redwoods team, we're all working on different things, then I mean, how do we test anything? We're not really building full system at any given time. We're building slices.
Right.
It's like pepperoni.
Yeah, we have a little bit of Cypress. Like in our release process, it actually runs through like the first few steps of the tutorial to make sure the tutorial itself doesn't break. That's like kind of our baseline to make sure Redwood's still working, is you can just still build a tutorial. So we do have some Cypress stuff in there.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying not to use it. I'm just
No. I'm just saying we actually do have it internally. We are using Cypress for that. Yeah, the exact same thing.
That's cool. That's actually really smart. A really smart idea, right? To use Cypress on the tutorial that you publicize, because then you know when it breaks, and then you can decide, is this a way to go, right?
Right.
Versus usually how it goes, it just goes, oh, your docs are out of date.
Right.
And that's not really useful. That's not a good experience. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
I think it's only like it does like the first half of the tutorial. We haven't like revisited it in a while. We got to update it and keep it up to date. It kind of defeats the purpose if you don't keep it up to date. So, but yeah, we got to get back to it.
That's true. But it is, like you said, we're at 2.6 or 2.5. I'll get it right one of these times. You just
0.25.
0.25, yeah.
Yeah.
0.25, and so at the end of the day, most important thing is to get to 1. And then once 1 is done, then it's like,
then you're done.
Let's make sure those other things. Yeah, then we don't have to build anything ever again, right? We're done.
Then you retire.
Yeah. I like that strategy. So I'll be retired in a couple of months. That's awesome.
There you go.
I'm down. Won't be able to go anywhere because of COVID, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Damn. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks so much, Rob. I mean,
thanks for having
it's been a real pleasure, and this has been really fun. I mean that.
This is fun. I learned some new tools. The live.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So let's do something like this again sometime soon. Hopefully we'll find time to do a number two of number 2.
Right. Two of 2. Yeah. To actually build the comments, the actual comment engine. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Cool. Thanks so much. And
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yep. You too.
Take care, Rob. Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Well, that was awesome. Rob's just a really nice guy. He's not even shining on like that. Ever since I met him, he's super awesome like that. So let me just pop his Twitter up there again. I did it at the beginning. That's Rob's Twitter, Kanakin. And I couldn't do these things while we were going because I had my full screen and it sort of restricted me. But and then this is the RedwoodJS Twitter site. Let's see what other stuff do I have for us. And please follow me at Mr. HTML CSS, whether that's YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, or all of them. you could do all of them. I'm okay with that. And look, I managed to get my Google Pillow in. So yeah, borrowed that from Google many years ago. So anyway, thank you everybody for hanging out, all of you, and take care and have a good afternoon. Cheers. Bye-bye.